The following is meant for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not meant to establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please consult your mental health provider for your mental health needs. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, my home where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. I'm Dr. Eric. I'm a psychiatrist who happens to be religious, and I'm hoping to create this space where we can talk about these interesting topics of religion and psychiatry that don't normally go together, and I hope you're enjoying it. In particular, I hope you're enjoying the William James series on the varieties of religious experience, and I hope you're enjoying also, this is lecture 9, talking about conversion. Conversion is a pretty interesting concept. And last time we talked about conversion, sort of the priority system, where some things are high, it's hot, high in your priority list, and things are on the periphery. And the conversion process is when something that used to be on the peripheral, like spirituality, suddenly becomes the center of your attention. And that this can happen gradually, it can happen suddenly, and we explore more about this later. Before we explore that later, though, William James kind of wants to comment on other people's idea of conversion, in particular Professor Starbuck, that I've kind of talked about before, and Professor, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Lubas, L-E-U-B-A's, concept of conversion. So with Professor Starbuck of California, he wrote a book on psychology of religion, and in the book he studies adolescents from 14 to 17 years old and their conversion process. And he focused on that in the evangelical circles, and that they found that the original set of emotions these people had, these teenagers had, was feelings of incompleteness and imperfection, brooding, depression, morbid introspection, sense of sin, anxiety, and distress. But after the conversion, there was a happy relief and objectivity that they had. Professor Starbuck's conversion, the conversion was a normal adolescent phenomenon, according to him, incidental to the passage from a small universe to the wider intellectual space of maturity. Of course, that makes sense if you're observing a bunch of evangelical teenagers on how they would do it. You would, of course, conclude that it was part of the maturity overall. The quote that William James cites is, theology takes the adolescent tendencies and builds upon them. It sees that the essential thing in an adolescent growth is bringing the person out of childhood into the new life of maturity and personal insight. It accordingly brings those means to bear which will intensify the normal tendencies. It shortens up period of duration of storm and stress. And in the study, he found that conversion phenomena of conviction of sin last about 1/5 as long as the periods of adolescent storm of stressful phenomenon, but are much more intense. Meaning that like I had loss of sleep and appetite and things like that. So that's, Professor Starbuck's kind of version of conversion. And in many respects, it makes some sense in our culture where we have a lot of rituals, whether it's confirmation or bar mitzvahs or sort of like rituals at that sort of adolescent stage in religious context, to say, hey, this is when you're becoming a full adult, becoming a man or becoming a woman. And that is the conversion process in the context of Starbuck. However, James says, yes, this might be true. However, in many respects, if these adolescents were taken to a different country or a different faith, their results would be different. For example, he says, according to Catholics and Episcopalians, I should be able to pronounce that. I'm supposed to be an expert at this stuff. Catholics and Episcopalians, Catholics, no such anxiety of conviction of sin is usual. For example, they would rely more on the sacraments and rely on them more strictly, and the individual person's acceptance of salvation does not need as much emphasis. So if we take these evangelicals and put them in a Catholic setting, it would be a very different form of conversion as a result. But he also points out that all of these people who are having these conversions, they are essentially kind of imitating the true origins of the conversion process. And therefore, it's actually more important to focus on the true origins, the original people who have had the original conversion process, before we go into systems where we have people going to camp for conversions or camps for growing to, or sort of sacramental aspects for going into an adolescent going into adulthood. That's where he would kind of say, Professor Starbuck has a pretty interesting findings, but he doesn't have it just quite yet. The second aspect that James, second person he wants to talk about who comments on conversion is Professor Luba. on an article in Psychology of Conversion. And James H. Luba was someone who lived from 1868 to 1946. He was an American psychologist, best known for his contributions to psychology of religion. And he was born in Switzerland, and he later moved to America. And his work focused on explaining mysticism and other religious experiences. And his position is best described as naturalism, where the idea that only natural laws operate in the world. And that is the most I got from Wikipedia. I don't know him too well. I didn't do such a deep research, but just to give a context of who William James is referencing when he's talking about Professor Luba's understanding of the conversion process. So Luba defines religious sense as the feeling of unwholeness, of moral imperfect sin, accompanied by the yearning after peace of unity. And he also states the word religion is getting more and more to signify the conglomerate desires and emotions springing from the sense of sin and its release. And he uses examples of alcoholics, converts, of someone who's an alcoholic, and then they convert, and then they gain spiritual pride in that as a result. So James criticizes Luba's definition of conversion because he says that it's too moralistic. And it doesn't really encompass religion. And if you remember, religion we defined a long time ago was this concept of interacting with the divine, trying to interact with the divine in some sort of way. And he says that when you look at an alcoholic conversion, an alcoholic mental state from wanting to drink alcohol to not wanting to drink alcohol anymore, it can have religious themes, but it doesn't have to have religious themes. And so when we're talking about, say, it could very well be like a purely ethical concept entirely. I don't want to do alcoholism because it's hurting the people I care about. And then you choose not to do alcoholism. Alcohol used to be at the center of what you believed and did, and it's now at the periphery, whereas now at the center is the more ethical and moral concept. And therefore, he would say, James would say that we should really, if we really want to understand the religious experience, we need to understand distinct elements of religious conversion other than other types of conversion, say ethical conversions. And so in this sense, it seems like James is separating the ethical pursuit from a religious pursuit. And that's fairly interesting because oftentimes in our society, we kind of conflate the two. And we say that if you're religious, you should be ethical. Because if you're not, then what was the point of religion? And other people also say that if you're ethical, then you don't have to be religious, therefore religion is useless. What James is saying that when we're looking at the religious experience and religious conversion, that we're not actually looking at ethical issues here. Ethical issues are important, don't get me wrong, but we're really trying to understand this idea of a religious conversion and what we're getting at here. And so he continues that onward in more detail in the next couple of parts of this lecture. I hope you found that interesting. It's pretty, I had twisting and stuff like that. I'm trying to make this as understandable as possible. Let me know if I'm not doing a good enough job. Do like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And see you next time. Bye. Hey, how's it going? Check out my new website. It's available now. You can learn more about me. You can also check out some things I'll be offering in the future, webinars, books, and whatnot. It's a fancy website with a lot of moving parts, designed by someone who's very, very talented. So check it out when you get a chance. All right, I'll talk to you later.